Between the 23 gun-related executive actions of the president, a slew of legislative proposals in Congress, and the elevation of gun control to the top of the nation's agenda, many different causes have been championed in the name of averting more massacres like Newtown and Aurora and Virginia Tech. Some have pushed for another ban on so-called assault weapons, others for restrictions on gun magazines, or armed security in schools, or universal background checks, or focused on the effects of violent video games or movies. And then there's mental health, or more precisely, mental illness. This is the common thread among the killers, for you have to believe the very capability and the act of shooting as many people as they did is by itself proof certain of mental illness. And yet we barely touch the surface of the problem that everyone, from gun owners to gun grabbers, can agree must be addressed. We've heard the call for more mental health assessment, but it's not assessment that we need, but reconsideration of a major but largely overlooked policy that has taken effect over time. Now, it's not like mental illness has ever been uncommon in our society, but these horrifying mass murders, which used to be rare, have now become frighteningly frequent. Why the change? Well, it likely has something to do with what's called deinstitutionalization. In the 1960s and 70s, in response to the increasing awareness of deplorable conditions in many mental institutions, there was a movement to release more and more victims of mental illness back into their communities. More than 90% of state psychiatric hospitals have closed their doors since 1960. But like most freedom, this liberation has come at a steep price. As patients moved out of mental institutions in droves, America's homeless population increased substantially, and violent crime doubled between 1962 and 82. In fact, in 100 rampage murders around the world in recent years, almost half of the murderers had a history of mental health problems. 20% had been previously hospitalized for mental illness, and over 40% had been previously seen by professionals for their mental illness. It's fair to say that some or most of the crazed killers who have become all too common these days might well have been confined to institutions in days gone by. Now, many mentally ill people who commit crimes are sent to prison instead of an institution, largely because there are so few institutions left. This is a tough issue, because it doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to grant the most freedom to the most people. We should consistently err on the side of freedom. That's what America is or has been all about. But we must also have the maturity and the will to act when we know someone has become a clear and present danger to themselves and others. Have we not all had enough of testimony about the unstable behavior of these mass murderers after the fact, when the damage is already done and the lives are already lost or ruined? Unlike the show being put on by the politicians calling for measures that will do nothing to prevent more of these tragedies, real reform, however slow and plodding it might be, will come when we are willing to revisit our beliefs on mental illness and deinstitutionalization and strike a more finely tuned balance between the freedom of some and the protection of all.